Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel, Architect's Maze. Today we're going to be doing a follow-up of the previous episode, which was the elevated par 3, how to create an elevated par 3. Now we're going to be looking at the cliff side of the rock work and stuff like that. I did a bit last night at the end of that previous episode, the last 15 minutes, where I just laid out this rock work here on the edge of this cliff. We're just going to do a little bit more work on tidying up the edges and just trying to maybe add a bit more rock and move it around a little bit more. Just show how I would do rock work and cliff faces and things like that. So let's get into it. We've literally, all I've done today is, well, off camera, was I just added that path in that I was talking about that I wanted to put down. And I added an area of this spline here, surface weathering. I just wanted to lighten everything up a little bit. I've put it on intensity 17. So obviously if I go more intense, it's going to get a lot bolder. But I just wanted to lighten up everything, so I've just kept dropping it down until it blended in. I found 17 was about where I was comfortable with it. About that. I just wanted to lighten up the grass a little bit. I thought it was a bit too green, so I just faded that out a little bit. And I just raised two little hills and I did a couple of bushes. It was all I really did off camera, so just while I was getting ready to do the episode. We added a little bit more grass round as well because it was just time consuming to do that on camera. So that's the view we've got of our elevated par 3. That was where we was there. So now we're just going to go back to tidying up the edge of this cliff. So let's find where we was down here. So obviously got all these rough edges along the edge of our cliff line. I've laid a bit of grass just to fill in some gaps, but we're going to use some bushes to do this sort of area now, and then we can fill in any grass bits afterwards. So a nice neutral bush that I like to use to do this sort of stuff would be this one. It's a nice light green, it blows up well, keeps its renders nicely. So we're going to use that to do a lot of the filling in around the edges and just hide some of these gaps between this rock work and the path. I mean, I could do this in certain scenarios. Just go to the raise tool, make it a bit bigger and just cover up those areas like that. Just raise it up a little bit. If you're really struggling for meter and stuff like that. Obviously we're just doing a tutorial, so and you can see I did a little extra overlap that bedrock a little bit so it blends with that rock there. You can do that. That's going to save you a lot of hassle, but if you want to go for the more sort of finished over the, well, not over the top, but more detailed sort of look, you can start adding a lot of bushes and vegetation into these edges just to finish it off nicely. And I'd like to take it up to sort of the point where it drops off, so you get a nice sort of green look to the edge of your cliff. And then we'll change the bush in a minute. I'm not going to use this colour solely because we want to add some texture and depth to it, but we'll use this one as the sort of basis to get most of the work done because it is a nice filler and it blends in nicely with that grass. So we're starting to get to the edge there now. So we want to cover, I could cover it up to there, but vegetation tends to grow just on the edge of it when you look at cliffs and stuff like that. I've got a cliff not far from where I live and we often sit up there and have dinner, fish and chips and stuff from the local fish shop. And when you look at the edge of the cliff, sort of, we sit sort of back here and it literally runs all the way up to the edge. So it gives you that nice little drop off point and get all sorts of bushes and grasses growing in tight. So let's get that around there. I'm just going to cover up this big bit here. I haven't obviously run this cliff work all the way around, but we can do a little bit more today just in case anybody hasn't seen that previous episode, and I am sort of calling it a Rockwork episode, so we should really be doing a little bit of Rockwork in it. So we'll just get all this filled in quickly. So yeah, now to sort of break up those edges and make it a little bit more interesting, we can introduce another colour. So we'll look for another bush. Another one I tend to use a lot because it does the same thing. If I can find it quickly, it's not that one. Is it one of these? It's a bit too dark for my liking. One of these maybe. Just to add little specks of texture into it, you can add bushes. This isn't the one I normally use, but this one will serve the purpose of what we're trying to do. Just trying to create some different colours so you can start to get a little bit of depth, so it's not just all one big blurry green sort of line, and that way you get emphasize little bits where it raises up a little bit more, drops into little darker edges. If you think where you got something that dips down, you're going to get more shade, aren't you? So you can emphasize that with a bit of a darker bush to try and get that sense that it's dropping into a little gap. Just fill two in that. Just keep looking for these little areas where you can add them. There's definitely one here. It's just a bit like adding shade into your artwork. If you're using pencil and stuff like that, you're going to highlight areas with more depth by creating darker areas for shade sort of thing. There's definitely a big dip there, so that would have a nice big area of it. So if you come back now, you can start to see that that adds that sort of extra element to it. We can start taking that back a little bit further so we can blend it in gradually more. So it's not just all along that little line there. It starts to drift off into the grass area more. And obviously we're keeping it sort of, we've got one, two, there's too much of a pattern there, so just stick a couple in between. I mean, we've made that quite big. We'll try a different bush, do something similar with it, but we've got, I mean, I've got to try different bushes that I don't normally use just for the fun of it. Let's try something browner. It's just stuff that blows up well. Some bushes do, some bushes don't. It's a bit too, it hurt to add a tiny little flecks of brown in here. I don't want to go too mad with it because we haven't got it anywhere else, and I don't want it to look too odd. But we could just start breaking things up and just adding some extra colour to it and a bit more depth. Don't think I want to put it too close to the edge. And I definitely want to fill in that area there. We'll try something up here. So we've got a few more there now. This area I'm definitely going to fill in with the grass. So we'll come here, go to our grass, we'll just do it manually. We can get that right up to there. That'll do for a minute, and then we'll get a bit over here, wasn't it? So we got a nice bit of vegetation and grass growing all along that cliff face now. Now you can, if you really want to, and I do normally do this, is start to try and blend some bushes into the actual rockwork itself coming down. If you look at some cliffs, they will have vegetation growing along the actual cliff face itself, so we can try it. I'm just trying to avoid using the same old stuff that I normally use. So I think the birch will be too light, but if I can get it, yeah, it's going to be way too bright in there. Let's use something a bit darker. I tend to normally use a broadleaf, but it doesn't. As long as you keep it small, it doesn't. It can blend in quite well. If you try to make it too large, I mean, it looks a bit too green for my liking. Oh, we've added those nice dark bushes there. Take that one out. So we need to find, I like to use this one sometimes for this sort of stuff. Hopefully it's a bit darker. Just avoid blowing it up too big. We could just start looking for little gaps of places to fill it in, just to break up that line of pure grass to rock only. Just little areas. Certain bits we can keep as just come back, have a look at it, make sure it's blending in nicely and you're not creating something that looks too unnatural. We obviously don't want to take it down too close to the water's edge. But we can just start to fade in some of those lines. Now some of the stuff you do, you might think I preferred it the other way, which is fine. These are all just techniques you can try. It's all trial and error, isn't it? It's no set way to do it. It's all personal preference and what catches your eye, but these are the sort of techniques I like to use for this sort of stuff. Now there's two bits that I really want to cover. Is I've got one of these, this shape here I hate. So I've got one there, I've got one there sticking out, and I've got one there sticking out. So I'd like to sort of cover that and make it not so noticeable, because it's a repeating pattern and it really sort of overexposes the rockwork. I could put extra rockwork in there and try and cover it, but we'll try it with some bushes. See if it blends in, does the same sort of thing. Just try and cover it up a little bit. So there's two higher points now, which I just want to try and get a bit more grass over the edge of, or grass bush. I'm going to try a different shape. Just try this one. I just want to sort of cover the edge without going too far down, sticking out too much. I think we're losing a little bit of our shape of our cliff there. That one's definitely sticking out too much. I don't really like the last couple I put in, so we'll take those out. That one, I preferred it with the fact that it was just blending in from the top to the bottom and not trying to overplant it there. Sometimes you can just go mad and overplant stuff, and you take a step back and think, maybe I shouldn't have done that. So let's take that one out. It's this one below here I don't want to get to. I don't mind the odd one, but I don't want to overemphasize it. I think that looks better. So that's cool. That's that little bit done. Now we could try a completely different colour of bush to see what it does. We'll try one of the heather sort of types, pink ones. Come past it twice. Just to see if we can add any more character in with it, if it helps. Do we want to keep it all green? Put a few in, see if you like it. I mean, it's a case of if we're going to do this, we need to put a lot more heather in all over the place, I think, really. But it can, little clusters of it can just break up the greenery sometimes, being everywhere total green. But you'd have to start blending it in all over the whole, I think, for it to work. So we'll keep that there for now, just as an idea of what you can do. As in terms of doing much more rock work, let's get a little bit of that done. We might just put something silly in, like a lighthouse, just for character. Let's go for that one. Just go for the little white one, I think. We can put that out here somewhere. That's that. And then let's have a look at the lighting quickly, because that's the key to making your rocks really stand out. Let's have a look at the orientation, see if we can bend it around a bit more. Don't want it too bright. Keep going around. We're adding a little bit of light there, aren't we? So that's that. So we can go back to what we was doing with the Rockwork if anybody didn't see that. We're just picking 3 or 4, maybe 5 particular shapes to do this. It's nothing too amazingly difficult. It's a case of getting this, because that rock's quite blends in. I was using that for more the bottom, just to bring the bottom of the cliff face out like this. Trying not to repeat it, as we said earlier, just over repeating sections. Bringing it round, changing the angle of it slightly. You can change the height of it, that will help with the repeat, so you're not just creating one big area. Drop that round. We can do it to the corner of our hole so we can't see it so much there. It's all in one shot. I think we'll do it this side up to about here. Let's get some rock work in, should take long at all. So we're just focusing on the bottom area at the moment, and we'll fill in the top with a different sort of rock. Let's get big up here. It's out of shot. It's not going to be in the player's view. We can get away with being really big, bold rock there. Let's get it so it's not coming over the edge of our cliff there. Get that in. Definitely need to adjust that lighting again. Sort of losing the. I might just take some cloud off. Probably be best. So let's go back to this one. Whack in a bit of this. There we got a little area there where we've got slightly different heights of the land raising up, so we just got to keep working that in. That shape I hate. I want to try and hide behind that rock, which is towards the middle of that rock in itself. So it doesn't take much to do it. Obviously you want to focus on make the rock smaller in the areas of detail which you're trying, or you know that the player's going to see, and the bits that he's not going to see you can afford to go big. If you're only looking at it ever from a distance, it's going to look absolutely fine. So when you try and make it close to the player that they're going to see potential places where they could hit the ball, it's going to look awful. So we don't need to do no more around there. We've pretty much blended that in quite quickly. I would like to try something here which we didn't use yesterday, which is a rock I used on Les La Brava. It's more for the corners, if I can find it, that one. So when I had sort of bends on corners of cliff faces that I was trying to bring out and change the shape of it a little bit, I would use this one. Now you just got to avoid the top bit there. If you can get that into the ground, you'll get a nice slope off. It's just how far you want to sink it in, if it improves it or does it not. So let's bring it this way. So you can just break up a little bit of the rock and create something different there. There's definitely a part there, and there's definitely a bit here that isn't right. I don't know that it really blends that well with that darker rock. Let's take a step back. It's not too bad. It's just this, there's one particular bit of rock in there that looks a bit funny, so I'm going to try and cover that up and blend it in a little bit more with this one. Let's get it placed. These were the ones we pretty much used. I can get smaller here. Try and just get something through here like that, which just breaks that up a little bit more. That's that. That one there. Okay, So then working down the bottom again, this is what I was using this one for, was just to try and bring it out a little bit so it wasn't so steep on its drop off point. Once we get around this bend we can get away with it because we're not really going to see too much more around there from the shot I want to take. So that started to come together now. And then we're really looking at this area up here. There's a couple of points where I can see sort of repeating textures, so we're just going to, repeating patterns, sorry. We're just going to drop a bit of rock and just mingle it in with it, just to try and break that up a little bit more. Add a little bit more darker areas to it and just come down a bit. Just that little bit there, if I can get that, I'll be happy. Really, it's not adding anything. That's pretty cool. Up here I'm not worried because it's going to be totally out of the player's shot, so that's fine, that's fine. All we really need to do is a little bit more of that tree bushwork coming out onto this point now, just to finish this edge off. Obviously if it was the hole I was working on for a course, I would finish this all the way up the side of the cliff as much as I could without draining too much on the meter. But just because this is only one hole, I'm not really looking at the meter and worried about it. I'm just trying to emphasize a point. And then we went this one. Now, you can do work like this all over your course, but you just want to highlight it for particular holes. For the rest of the rock work, you can start to leave it blank in places where people aren't going to see and just leave the bedrock like that. It's purely up to you how you do it, but that will hide it all in the distance. Let's just get that going and then a bit through here. I think that covers the majority of what we're trying to achieve in this little section. I'm definitely going to put a couple of the lighter ones back in now. Over the top, I'm just start mingling them back in. So that's pretty much as we can do on the edge of that rock work there. Let's just bring it a little bit more this way. Got a little lighthouse in down there. I mean, really, we've only spent an hour and a half really on this hole. Probably did about 15 minutes off camera, so looking at a couple of hours to achieve this sort of look on this hole, so it's not bad for what we've done. That'll do for that, and then because we're again coming off to the part which we don't want to focus too much on, we're going to focus on the rock work around that lighthouse area and stuff. That's the bit that most people are going to be, their eyes are going to get drawn to as they're looking at that. It's working on something that putting the more detail in the area that people are really going to be focused on, and then trying to be subtle with the other areas, not so detailed, but make it look like there is detail there. That way you can save a lot on meter. I mean, we're getting a lot of repeating patterns at the moment. We'll blow that up again in a second with some of that bigger rock. Just hide that down there. That gets us to that point I wanted to hide. And as I said to you yesterday, some people will probably prefer just the bedrock, which is fine. It's just the hole that someone wanted me to try and show how I did the rock work on Liz La Brava, and I was just trying to emphasise it with this sort of hole design to get to that. So stone, whacking a bit of this. going to try and break up a couple of those bits up there. We're starting to lose. Yeah, that kind of gets to the point where that angle's so steep now that stone's not really going to work unless I really blow it up big and drop it down more, like that sort of angle. And then I've got to try and hide it again because I'm going to have a massive bit here. But if I angle it out into that area and raise it up a tad, hopefully I can start to just blend that little bit in there, and drop it down and cover that little bit there. And then we might just want to get one more in up here on this little bit here. And that serves its purpose for what we was trying to achieve. Just putting stuff off into the distance. There, and then down. Bring it out a little bit, bend it in. So that's that. Then if you want to, obviously, the last finishing touch we can do is put the real low level rock work in. So we can blow up a nice big bit like this. We could either leave some of them. I mean, you're going to get little bays and areas in rock work where you're going to have bits of rock sticking out, and then other areas are just going to be sheer cliff faces. So I don't want to overemphasize it too much by trying to put too much of this in, but I'm just trying to break up that bottom bit a little bit and have something different running through there. And I think as a point that I want to get to is I'm going to do that as a sort of cliff face there, leave that gap, maybe just get a bit on that corner there, raise it up a little bit. Let's delete that previous one, get that up, start dropping a little bit more down, take it out, see if it works, try it that way. It's not doing much really, but it gives us a little bit more along there, just for the hell of it. So in that scenario, we're going to take that one out, just remove that one, try putting this one in, because this bends, slopes down sort of away. Get one more bit in there. This is all stuff we did on yesterday's one, so if you do go to that, ever watch that video, you'll see all this sort of stuff in there, how we did that other bit, but just get some of that in there. And then one more, which will be this one, gives us that nice big square, and we can fill in that gap about there somewhere. If we spin it this way, just create a different look to that. Try coming back, just filling in that little edge there. Again, I'm working quite quickly, so if I was doing this on an actual course that we was going to publish, I would be taking a lot more time with it. But we can achieve it quite quick. The look we're going for. So then all that's really missing, I think, up here, which we can just do very quickly, what we like for time, we're absolutely fine. I'd like to get a little bit more, it's not the one I want. I'd like to put in a couple of cameras and just do a little zoom around this hole. See if we can highlight it any better. Got a nice bit of sun out at the moment. On the game, not where I live. It's been pretty a lot cooler today. We took a drive up the coast today and found a little place where there's loads of seals on the beach. Had a little walk along the beach with all the seals with the kids. It was really cool. It's literally lying right in front of you. Whole heap of seals. Pretty mad. So that's that. And then again, we're just going to go for a bit of that green again. Sorry, green, dark green, just to give it a little bit more texture. You won't see it so much here because it's a lot brighter when the sun dips a little bit. It'll start to shine through again. Just drop it into that. That's enough for now. A little bit of that. So being way too bright now. If you lighting is too bright on something like this, then you lose the shadows and the detail in the cliff. So going to weather and adding some clouds back in, I think will darken it up again and get a bit of texture back in that rock. Bit of light and texture there like that. So that's that. I'm just going to save that just in case it crashes. And then we'll just check out the tee shot. I think scenarios like this, because it's a linksy style course and it's going to be very undulating, and don't be afraid to just add bumps in here and there. Not that big, but give it a bit of character. Don't just have flat land all the way around. Don't be afraid to put in a few places where there's going to be risen or raised areas, sorry. I don't think there's too much more we can do there. Maybe one along there. That little gap. So that's that. Let's see what we can do up here. These bushes are too high. Oh. Just want them blending in really. Put so much grass there, it's trying to struggle to find the bush. I'm not that worried about it. Chop that down as well. And that. Okay, so then framing our t-shirt, I just added a little bit of a raised area here as well. I could add a little bit of colour into it just to break up some of the greenery, so we've got a little bit of focus off our t-shirt. Just blend in some lighter pink stuff that the eye might catch and give it a little shift and bend. Try and get some of that running through the edge of that hill. I don't know if we'll get away with it over here. Yeah, we can have a couple of little pink bushes sticking through it. It's a little bit of colour to the bottom. Take a bit up that. So that's that. That's that. We could just see our lighthouse off in the distance, but not off the tee probably. I don't think I can make that much taller. I've got a door there, which is kind of pointless, as it's. I can leave that around that way actually. I suppose you could get there by boat, wouldn't you? Who's going to work on that lighthouse? Changing the bulb or anything like that? Getting a bit too technical for it now. Right, let's have a look at that. That's working. We got our 62 foot down. Got a nice bit of bushwork off in the distance where our joins up, and we can't really see much of the edge of the rock. It's all blended in naturally. Like I said, you'll never see cliffs from the top. It's all blended in with bushes and vegetation grows over. So that's working how I'd like it to. God, I hate using that camera. It's all pretty much doing what we want it to do. So that was for Greg Parrott and Rock for One, who were the guys who wanted me to do this little tutorial. One was for the elevated green and the other one was for the rock work. So I hope that's answered your questions and how I do it. That's what I really want people to do, is just throw ideas at me of stuff they want to see or stuff they're not sure of how to do, or anything you want me to do a tutorial on. If I can help and I'm a benefit to you, I'll do a video as soon as I can and show you my sort of method of doing it. Not always the best method, not always maybe the quickest or most efficient, but it's how I do it, and I've always done stuff. So it's one single hole at the moment, so once the cool starts to build up, obviously it's going to have more of an effect, but it's not a bad bit of rock work there now. It looks pretty cool the way that's all blending down after that point there. So let's just try a quick camera sequence. I've been trying to work on my cameras a little bit more at the moment, trying to get the settings of them right. I don't want to dwell too much on it, but I'll come over here and I sort of want to get out to sea really with the rest of this stuff, so we get capture our rockwork sort of thing. We're on the edge of the plot there, are we? There we are, aren't we? There's only so far we can go. Let's try and come round. Sorry if I've been struggling with my breathing on this. I've had a bad cold and I'm trying to breathe, but I'm still a bit bunged up and blocked up, so especially when I concentrate, I've noticed, I never knew I did it until I started filming, I tend to find that I breathe pretty heavy, so I apologise for that. I'm sure it annoys some people. But let's have a go at that just for a view, see what it's like. The tween settings are all going to be out of goose, so you're going to get slow and fast. I don't want to mess about with it too much. I want to speed it up, but I think from what I've learned so far is you have to go to each camera and set them on the speed that you want. There's different ways of doing it from what I've tried to research. Some people say different things, so on my new course that I'm doing, I'm going to go and check out some ideas that people have suggested, see if they work. If they do, I'll get back to you and say, yeah, this is a really cool way of doing it. Now I'm going to go advanced mode on tween settings. Someone told me to have auto ease camera sequence to none, and I like having the first camera on these settings. Is it that one? Setting the distance a lot further and putting it on wide, angle strong, and then doing that on the last as well. It's the last one that you seem to have the most problems with. It always tends to be really jerky on that one, so I want to get that as the wide. Yeah, 130 odd, and then that one. So like I say, unless I individually go and set them all to 25, I don't think it's going to quite work how I want it to, but let's have a quick look at the whole. 25's way too fast maybe. Just trying to see if we can highlight a bit more of the rock work with it, but because I've designed the hole so close to the edge of the plot, I can't take the cameras back any further to get a further away angled view of it. So the last camera was kind of pointless, and then the other one needs to be a bit higher because we're not seeing anything of the hole. Delete that camera. One of them round here was that one. This one. Just going to move it so it's facing that a bit more, facing the hole a bit more. And that one. Definitely that one. Yeah, over that. We'll try that, and then we'll leave it as it is, and then hopefully it's been of some help to you. I would definitely want to take that. To slow that first one down, but maybe because I've selected tween settings and none. How I have been doing it on my course is camera step settings. I wonder if I can make it, the more I make wide angled, how much it changes it. So the tween settings there, auto ease, I've been doing it as lerp speed. I'm not too sure. Let's go again. Not much of a tutorial because I'm not an expert at all on cameras, unfortunately. I'm just getting to learn them. But they are cool to play around with and get some nice looking shots of your holes. It's just a case of how many people actually watch them. It's that camera there, it's not looking at the hole, is it? I suppose we're emphasising the Rockwork, so it's fine. It's a shame we can't go any further back. But yeah, at the end of the day, that is an example of how I do cliffs. Anyone who didn't see the sculpting of it, it's dead easy to do on sculpting. I'll show you over here. There's a nice flat bit here to work with. All you need to do is just go to your any raise tool will do. I tend to use the same sort of one. Go to this one, bring it in and start bringing it up. Okay, you can make it bigger, smaller, only bring up certain areas for cliffs, leave other bits for beaches or something. But putting that up like that, you can start doing it all the way around your course. You can have certain areas higher, obviously, and drop certain areas down if you wanted to put a beach down. Take them all under the water, create little bays and things like that in your course. Select what you want. On Rannoch Moor, for example, I did this shape throughout the course to bring water into the course. So, where was it? This one. Pretty sure it was this one. And I just sort of raised up certain areas to create hills and mountains and things like that. The bigger you go with this one, the better. So bring up some hills and mountains along. And then in between that, if you go to your raised area again, we'll try this shape again. And just dip down to the groundwater level. You can start to bring in more cliffs inside the middle of your course and create little sort of estuaries and things like that coming through. Pretty cool areas to work with. You can just microsculpt into how you want to do it. Start adding cliffs in these areas, more bedrock. But you can make an island of your choice basically by doing this. The shape I was using there was that one to cut in the actual cliffs along the edges here. So just do that, create some different shapes so you're not getting one flat line. Hit that one again, get rid of that. And we've pretty much got our own unique island in a minute. We'll have this done. Cut that corner, bring that in there. There you go, we've got our own island. Just, that's a funny looking shape there, isn't it? So we'll just take that off. We can do what we want with it, we can build our course around that. And then, yeah, I don't think there's too much more to do. If we want to create cliffs along these edges, we just go to the same shape again that we had a minute ago, because they're nice rough edges on that first spline I used to sink it. Bring it up, and we'll start to get mountains and cliffs going in these areas now. Sloping them down all the way to the water, create some nice hills. You can run it all the way through the middle of your course, but the more you overdo it, you can create a nice little lake effect. That's how I did sort of the Walker's Loch Ness. Just create a big area like that and just sculpted up hills and created the course all the way around the edge and sculpted areas flat and stuff like that. So there's a myriad of things to do, but that's our island. Can't zoom up that high on the designer to show you from the miles up. And that's our Rockwork that we did. So I hope it's been of a help to you all. Hope you've got something out of it and some ideas maybe. This is always aimed at newer designers. The more experienced old heads know all this sort of stuff, and I wouldn't try and be able to teach them how to do this sort of stuff. But it's just some of you newer designers, you're looking to get into it and you're wondering how things are done. This is what this is aimed at, and hopefully you can understand what I've been trying to do and be able to put it into your own courses. So good luck if you do. Hope it all works out. Any questions you ever want to ask me, just feel free to drop a comment. Always here to help you if I can. Happy to drop in ideas for videos where you want to see how to do stuff. Again, I'm always happy to help. So thanks for watching, everybody. Like and subscribe if you want to. It'd be great and help the channel out loads if you could. And thanks for watching. Cheers. Bye.